Well, let's get going because the 8th round has started. So we need to get back upstairs.
Suffice it to say, you talked to Zach Stacy today, huh?
You know, I talked to Zach this morning, actually, and we had a really good conversation. You know, looking back over the years, I don't know if I remember a player that handled the circumstances that he handled last year with, in essence, what we refer to as a demotion, better than Zach from a team standpoint. And we talked about that. He's an outstanding young man. He's a great teammate. We got on the same page this morning. I told him that, you know, we're going to try to go ahead and make a move, but we don't know what that looks like, whether that was going to be today or, you know, tomorrow or training camp or whatever, but we were going to try to do that. And he was very appreciative of his opportunity here and everything. And so then when we put it together in the 7th, I got in touch with Zach before we actually turned the trade in. He was very excited. So we'll get together before he leaves. He's been one of my favorites. He's an outstanding young man.
Did you get other calls for Zach, or was it just the one team? Or?
Well, we talked to a number of teams. Okay, this happened to be the best fit. So
Is this a case? I mean, you just kind of got beat out last year. I mean, Trey Mason played very well, and so did Benny in that third down role.
You know, it was a combination of things. I think last year it was a combination of what we were doing offensively. It was a combination of the, you know, the change in the quarterback play and everything, and then giving Trey an opportunity. Then we had the explosive plays and things like that. But I mean, you guys saw Zach work on the practice field after you know, Trey took over, and he did an outstanding job. So. You know, he's gonna be fine up there. It's a good place for him. He's a competitor, and you know, obviously, Brian, you know, has a pretty good feel for him. You know, he was really high on him when, you know, we drafted Zach. You know.
And so you said changes. What? Some offensive tweaks were a little different for Zach.
Yeah.
You alluded to earlier this week. You said you feel a lot better about the offensive line after the weekend. How do you feel about it right now?
Feel good. Yeah. Feel real good. It's been a long time coming, you know, particularly because of the needs and you know what we've done together over the last 3 years. But this was, you know, the Todd pick was great, and then our focus went to the big guys, and you know, for us to be able to say that we came away with, you know, the 3, and then of course, you know, our last pick today was pretty impressive.
Was it like Coach said? We sat here on, what was it, Thursday night, and of course hey, when are we going to help the OL? But we, you know, looking at it, obviously, I mean, Todd's as we said, a once in a while talent, so that helps everybody. But just looking at a lot of that, we studied OL as hard as any position this year, but some of the data says, you know, most starting left tackles, the average round you get those guys, average is second, but obviously you get that position in the first, and we kind of addressed that last year. But you take the guard spot, the center spot, and the right tackle spot, and the average round of all starters in the league is about 3.6. So, you know, we felt like, you know, in rounds 2, 3, 4, we could address, you know, the OL and get some guys that's got a chance to come in and help us.
What do you like about the 2 that you added today?
Well, you know, Andrew, they do a great job up there. Coach Ferentz and his son do a great job coaching that offensive line. So he's very well coached. You know, there's flexibility there. I think he was perhaps a little bit overlooked, you know, because of their left tackle. But we saw some really good things and felt like that would have a chance for him. He's got, as we talk about, the flex, the guard, the tackle flex, but he's very well coached. And then, you know, Cody's just one of those guys that is just a self-made guy that just plays hard all the time. He's very athletic. So, you know, we got 4 guys that you know, we feel like can play.
Is that part 2 when you start stockpiling that many bodies somewhere, just increasing your odds that some of these guys are going to work out? Is that part of it?
Well, I mean, we didn't throw darts now. I mean, we think these guys can play, you know, and so we'll have a much better idea, you know, once we get them in and get going. But we feel they can all come and contribute.
Along those lines about throwing darts, you what's his name, Donnell said that he had a suite visit with you guys at the Combine, so you must have been on him for a while, huh?
Yeah, he was one of our, at the Combine, you get about 60 interviews, max. I don't know if we maxed them out. Most of the time we do, but when you do 60, it gets old sometimes. So sometimes we go 50 to 60. This year at the Combine, we did a lot of the offensive linemen there. And if they passed the test there, because obviously like Rob and Donald, they didn't come into top 30s, but they were, through vetting them in the interviews at the Combine, got the thumbs up, and so we didn't have to bring them in.
Did you first notice Donnell watching Scherf, or did you just notice him on his own right?
Well, I think obviously when the scouts go in, you're going to evaluate the draft eligible players. So, he was going to get evaluated one way or the other. But last year he played guard. This year they moved him out to right tackle. Did some left tackle, a couple times when Scherf went out with it. He got banged a couple times. So versatile. So you just knew his versatility, and then, through the Combine process, tested relatively well for, a tall, big man.
7 consecutive offensive players. How did you keep Ray Williams at bay for the first 6 rounds?
I told him, it might have been yesterday, I said, see what happens when you have back-to-back shutouts. So.
Well, you too, Coach. Your PR staff said that you had never had this was your first draft, and going all the way back to your start with Houston, where you had more than, I think it was 3 offensive players taken in a row. So that had to be a little tough for you too, huh?
It was not hard at all.
Maybe late in the draft, Coachy.
No.
There was one time he said, let's just look at this side of the board. But
No, we're fine. No, every team's different. Every situation's different. The drafts are different. But, we clearly entered this draft collectively feeling that we were going to come away with some solid offensive linemen. And, Todd obviously is quite the bonus. But, so we feel good about it.
Coach, how many, by necessity, quote, starters did you think you had to get out of this draft on the offensive line, or do you look at it that way?
Don't look at it. It's just, and I don't want to say they're options, but they're real players. These guys have played a lot of football in college. I mean, you look at the number of games played and starts with respect to all 4 of the offensive line that we drafted. It's solid. And so they're durable, they're smart, they're well coached, and they're going to fit in.
How about Sasser? You take you're only the quarterback, but you're your only other skill player in the draft. Just your thoughts on that.
You notice Sasser this year, obviously they had a lot of wide receivers there in the last few years, and then a couple of them that graduated. 2 of them had shots at camps, and then we all know the story on Doriel. But so this year, with the moxie quarterback that they have, you just notice, him throwing the ball up and that guy going to get it and high point it. So he was a big part of their offense. I think the stats show that he probably more than tripled his numbers this year. But long story short, like the size and if you want to call it the arm length and just catch radius, strong hands.
And then you close with 2 defensive players. Did you know Bryce's dad at all, Britt Hager? He played here in '97.
Yes, it's a great story. So, yes, know him very well. So, actually, he was a draft pick of ours in 1989 while I was coordinating in Philadelphia. So, made me feel old today.
So he played for you, huh?
Yes.
And what kind of player would you say his dad
He was an outstanding player. Outstanding player. The story is this. I was asked by the head coach at the time to evaluate this one linebacker from Texas. His name was Britt Hager. So I watched 4 or 5 games and went down the hall and reported my opinion. And the head coach told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I said, fine. And then 2 days later in the draft, the head coach, that being Buddy Ryan, he traded away 7 through 12 in 1989 to get a 3 to draft Britt Hager.
So wait a minute, Buddy Ryan told you didn't know what he was talking about?
Yeah, that was Buddy's. That was how Buddy operated. So I think I just with some reassurance that he wanted Britt. So yeah, Yeah, do the research. Yeah, we drafted Britt. He traded away our whole draft.
So that's like, you're like
You
a
see-
grand coach.
Yeah,
It's just-
What's that?
yeah.
He's a grand coach.
Do
His
you
dad was a
see-
good football
Do
player.
you
He
see any
played hard.
of Britt and Bryce?
Oh, yeah, it's sideline to sideline. That's how his dad was. Just sideline to sideline. You know, Texas, University of Texas, Odessa Permian. And, yeah, he ran and played special teams and was a great teammate. And that's the same thing you see out of Bryce. I mean, Bryce really productive. They speak very highly of him there at Baylor. And, yeah, so he's going to be, you know, he should have an impact, you know, from a special team standpoint. And beyond that, we'll see how it goes. But he's well coached and a very talented young man.
Pretty fast, too. I think it is junior day, 4.49. Is that right? Is he that fast?
You know, he did. That's confirmed by the combine on his junior, and came back and probably ran in the. I think he ran a 4.6 probably at the combine this year, probably in the 4.5s at his pro day. So has always timed well, and he plays fast, plays urgent, instinctive kid.
And lastly, the guy you got in the Zach Stacy trade. His thoughts on
Martin?
Fetty? Yeah.
Well, he was on the board there for a while, and you know, Coach Waffles very high on him. His staff was high on him. The scouts liked him. Don't know if he was 100% this year.
Right.
And but the production was still there. But we feel like there's a big upside there with Martin.
Yeah, the year before, I forget which year it was. He was probably the nation's sack leader. And then,
What, a knee injury early on or something?
good point. Don't want to confirm that right now, but he played this year. After he went through the. I think I want to go back to when he was leading the nation in sacks. I want to say it's probably 12, then 13, 14. So, but he's been a guy that in a defense has played defensive end, 5 technique, rushes from the inside. So a guy they played all over the field depending on, you know, the defense there at Memphis.
He's their all-time leading sack leader, so, you know, they play a pretty good schedule too, don't they?
Yes.
You mentioned yesterday, Coach, about how the two linemen kind of fit the style that you guys want. I think it's fair to say these next two also do. You just talk about that just in general, that style.
They do, yeah, they do as well. Andrew, you know, all of them finish, and that's the thing that we really like. They're downfield, they're pushing people over piles, they're aggressive, and they're finishing. And, you know, I mean, there's less said about Cody, you know, if you're somewhere in the vicinity, he's going to hit you. You know, there's some contact involved, and that's kind of the mindset that, you know, obviously we need to carry forward, but it's not something that we have to teach. It's something that they, you know, it's the way they play right now.
So is Barksdale still a possibility? after
Still a
all these things?
possibility, yes.
You mentioned the 8th round. Could you talk a little bit, with so many players under contract, does it change the way you guys approach the next day or so as far as bringing in those
It's a
college free agents?
really good segue into us going upstairs, but
Really, it affects the numbers. I mean, how many players you need. So obviously, we need we need less when there's more under contract presently. So post draft it. So instead of signing 30, you may only need 15. So that's really all it does. And then from there, it's hey, the draft is hey, are there good free agents or are there not? You know, and this year draft probably a little less deep than last year. So, you know, as last year, you get a Marcus Roberson in free agency. I don't know if we're getting a Marcus Roberson this year in free agency.
Just 'cause
or a
it's
Rodney.
Just 'cause it's a real unique situation, you gotta ask that. With Lael Collins, how do you approach that and try to figure out what's going on and move forward if you did have interest in it?
Well, I mean, I think across the board, I think everybody had interest in him because he was a good college football player. But I think now we just have to let things unfold and see what happens. It's very, very unfortunate whether, you know, he was involved or not when the incident. But it's just, you know, unfortunately, it's one of those things that happened that's very, very unfortunate.
So you made a conscious decision as an organization where we can't draft the guy?
That's correct. I mean, I think most people did it. Extraordinary circumstances and very, very difficult, and we just have to wait now for the legal process to work itself out. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.